Here I have a standard router table. What I have is I have a slot in here. That's where your miter gauge would go. You can run back and forth with that. If you have the right feather boards, this one unfortunately doesn't have the attachment, but if you set it up right, it'll have a piece that sits in the slot. It can keep your feather board up this way. The fence here is pretty shallow. I prefer to have it a lot higher so that I can actually take feather boards and I can attach them. This fence is adjustable this way and that way, and you can lock it into place wherever you prefer. And on the back here, you can see that you have holes so that you can go even further away from the bit. There's the bit itself. There's a plate that goes around here that can be popped out in case you want to go to a bigger bit. This here is the plate that mounts on it, and it just gives a lot more stability and allows it to be removed from the unit quite easily. On the back here, you have a dust chute your vacuum hooks into, which will help to clear all the sawdust for you. There's a guard on here, which can be adjusted two different ways. It can be adjusted on the top and pushed out this way. And this one here can move up and down depending on the size of the bit. And it's just all held on with a bunch of wing nuts. Here's the router mounted underneath the actual table. What you have on here is you have a switch. If you slide it like that, that'll allow you to move it up and down, which is like this. And that's what you need to do in order to get at the nut, which is up here, to be able to loosen off the bit rather than taking it right out. On-off switches here. Make sure you have it unplugged if you're going to monkey around with it. And that's pretty straightforward. Try to blow out, and you can see there's a bit of debris in there. Blow it out periodically. Clean it out. It's very good for your router. It's going to last a lot longer, and it's not going to overheat. I found this is the actual chamfer that I wanted, and I want to recreate it. So what I did is I just brought the bit up so that it basically came up against the chamfer, and at the same time it was touching the bearing. And then it'll give me the exact same profile so that I can redo it and match it up with existing. That's a fairly big chamfer. I don't want to take that all in one bite, so I'm going to adjust my fence so that I can take it in several passes. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring the actual fence out in front of the bit. Move the guard. For my first pass is I'm going to bring the fence out and I'm going to cover up the bearing. And I'm going to put it in so that I just take a very, very shallow cut. Like I say, depending on what you're cutting, if it's soft pine, you'll be able to get away with less passes at it. If you got something that's really hard like hickory or hard maple, you're going to want to take extra. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a chamfer, 45-degree chamfer on the one edge here. I want to do it in a couple of passes because you don't want to take it all in one pass because you could burn out the bit. You can leave burn marks on the piece. So I'm going to do it in two passes. So I got to set up for the first pass. When I get on there, what I need to do is I need to use my push stick. And I'm going to use this hand to keep it up tight. And I'm going to push it all the way through. It's not going to touch on the bearing, but it will catch the other fence. And what I've done is I've taken these fences and I've moved them in as close as I can. And what happens is now all the dust is going to go into the dust collection system through the vacuum hose here. To go deeper, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it in so that basically the fence is parallel with the actual bearing, and that'll give me my full depth. I'll show you how to do that. If I loosen these back here for my my final pass on this, what happens is if I have a ruler and I put it up against the fences and I line it up with the bearing and it's flush against the bearing as well as the fence, and you can see it moved on me there. I will readjust it. It is a bit finicky. Sometimes it doesn't fully want to cooperate. So you just take your time, get it right, and it lines up perfect with the bearing. To do this properly, I need to feed this board from the right to the left in order to get it in the right position so that the cutters actually are cutting in the right direction. pass. So I got myself a nice 45-degree bevel. So if I had an extended fence here, what I could do is I could put the featherboard here down and I could clamp it up higher. But what happens is when you put your featherboard down is you want to put some pressure on it because you want to keep it down. And you're going to keep it right there. That'll keep it flat on the table when it goes. And it also, because there's a little pressure on it, it's hard to push it backwards. So it'll prevent it from kicking back on you. I can also take my featherboard. I don't have the component, it's packed away right now. But if you take a featherboard and you do the exact same thing in this direction, if you have a clamp and it's big enough, you could clamp it down to the table, like this one right here. I'm just going to put just enough pressure on it just to keep it up tight against there, prevent it from kicking back. You can also round the corner here before you make it, and it'll run in there a little bit smoother. And like I say, all I need to do is take 2 clamps and clamp it to the table, and it's secure, and it's not going to come away from the fence. And it's not going to come up in the air if I have the one on top.